Welcome students for online classes. So today we'll continue with the chapter 6 under Indian economy, the rural development. So in the earlier session we had studied about the problems which had occurred in the rural development. Today we will study about the rural credit. Okay, as the name itself tells, the rural, the village area and the provision of the credit for doing what things will be done in the rural areas, maybe any kind of agricultural facility, maybe to set up any kind of industry, maybe the cottage industry or the small scale industry. To do all these necessary things, the credit should be given, or the farmers need money to invest on all these things. So because of that, the rural people will be asking credit. So we will study in detail about this rural credit. First, what is the meaning? The credit available for the rural people for both agricultural and non-agricultural activities is known as rural credit. Say the non-agricultural activities like the celebration of marriage, births and deaths, or anything like that, to celebrate any kind of maybe any family get together, to for all these things, the people, when the people are not having sufficient amount with them, what will they do? They will go for the credit. So these are the things we'll study today. And what happens? Timely and adequate credit at reasonable rate of interest, that is the main aim of the rural credit, that the rural people or the village area people, where they need to get the credit at lower rate of interest. So the purpose, what is the purpose? There are two kinds of purpose under rural credit. First is the productive purpose, where the loans or the credit will be taken for to buy seeds, fertilizers, cattle, any kind of agricultural equipments, additional land to cultivation, for cultivation, and to make permanent improvement on land, such as digging and deepening of wells. All these things, when it comes to the land, when it comes to any kind of poultry farming, all these things are comes under the productive thing. Okay, so when I come to the non-productive thing, these are like the celebration of marriage, births, deaths, consumption of any kind of food. All these things are not only consumption of food, using a particular thing, maybe any kind of sofa, maybe any kind of almirah, all these things is also a kind of consumption, because you use it in any kind of a way. So non-productive purpose comes under these kind of things, that is marriage, births, all these things, celebrating any kind of thing. Okay, next, the main thing which you need to remember are the sources of rural credit. So there are two main sources of rural credit. First one is non-institutional source and second one is institutional source. So first one, what is non-institutional source? A credit or money borrowed from any other institutional credit other than the institutional credit sources are called as non-institutional source. Other than the institutional credit sources, in the sense, maybe any kind of money lenders, traders, any kind of commission agents, landlords, all these people, where what will they ask? They will ask a percentage of interest, where the people who have taken credit will be giving this to the money lenders. So this is about the non-institutional source. So first one is about the money lenders. Majorly what the people will do, majorly under everything, under the institutional source, non-institutional source, first and foremost the priority is been given to the agricultural thing. Okay, agricultural cultivation, or maybe any purchasing any kind of new things, all these things are being prioritized. Okay, so under money lenders, the people or the farmers will be taking the money for the agricultural purpose. So what happens? The provision of credit is on the easy terms and conditions. Easy terms and conditions, in the sense, the farmer can give the credit within a year, maybe there will be only less amount of rate of interest. These things are under the money lenders. Next one is about the traders and commission agents. So even this comes under the agricultural credit, where the farmers will be taking for any kind of agricultural purpose. So they charge, that is the traders and the commission agents charge a high rate of interest and compel the farmers to sell their products at lower price. So what happens when the farmers will be going to the money lenders and even they will not provide any kind of credit? When the farmers have no other option, what will they do? They will directly go to these traders and commission agents. So at this point of time, what will happen? So the people who gives the money to the farmers or any kind of poor people, what happens, they will charge a high rate of interest and ask the farmers to sell their products, maybe any kind of ragi, jowar, or rice, paddy, that is paddy, all these things at a lower rate of price, so which will be a loss for the farmers and which will be very difficult for the farmers to gain the money in back, so they have to even pay their credit back, right? So because of that, it will be very difficult for the farmers to pay their money back. Last one, third one is about the landlords. So landlords and the rich farmers have the significant place in rural credit. Why they are having significant place? Just because they will be sending, or they, so not sending, they will be giving the money to whom? To the poor farmers who needs the money, so they will charge a very high rate of interest, which will be a problematic thing to the poor farmers. How money lenders exploit the rural farmers, that is the poor farmers, how money lenders take the money and do the necessary things. What do? They charge very high rate of interest on the loans or the credit which the poor farmers will take up, and which will be very difficult for the poor farmers to pay that money particularly in back. So that is one of the mainest thing. Next thing, manipulating the accounts to keep them. Why? Because to have them in the debt trap. Once, what happens when the people are in debt trap, or when the people are in debt, it is normal that the people will do all the necessary things which the other person tells. So because of this, the money lenders, the landlords, the commission agents, all these people, what do? They will keep the poor farmers, they manipulate the accounts, they will tell that you haven't paid the money, all these things, as proper information is not given, as education is not properly given to the people. So because of this, what happens, it will be very difficult for the poor farmers to keep in mind all the necessary things. So this manipulation is first and foremost, which is found everywhere in the economy. Next one, they do not give any proper receipt to the farmers. So what happens, normally manipulating the people, that the poor farmers, that you haven't paid, that I will be not giving a receipt, or if not, I will be telling I will be giving by tomorrow, or they'll not give by tomorrow. All these things are being done by the money lenders. Lastly, they force the farmers to sell their produce at the low price. Why? Because the traders or the commission agents will get the money normally, and even with that, what the people will do, the people will even take their crops at the low price, which is one of the difficulty thing or the problematic thing which the poor farmers face. Second is the institutional source. The institutional source is the credit or the money supplied by various financial institutions and agencies which supply credit to agriculture is called institutional source, where what happens, the agricultural sources may be the NABARD, commercial banks, regional rural banks, cooperative credit society, land development banks, self-help group, all these things, all these are the institutional sources which gives the credit or money which will be given to the farmers at low rate of interest or at a certain percentage of the interest to everybody. So first one is about NABARD. So the abbreviation is National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development. So what happens, which was established in the year 1982 in the month of July. So what does this particular NABARD does? The National Bank of Agriculture and Rural Development, as the name itself tells, it is for the agriculture and the rural development. So this is the apex bank, or this is the main bank for the agricultural purpose. Okay, so what do? They give the rural credit for the poor farmers to start any kind of business, to start any kind of agricultural, only the agricultural facility. Okay, maybe to buy any kind of implements, maybe to buy any kind of seeds, fertilizers, all these things. So they started, that is the NABARD started financing the rural banks and other institutions also to meet the rural credit in the sense the people or the poor farmers who needs the credit. So what happens at this particular point of time, it is very much important for them that the poor farmer should need money, that too at lower rate of interest. So all these things will be done by the NABARD, which is the apex and or the mainest bank which will be doing all the necessary things under the agricultural development. Next institution is the commercial banks. So this commercial banks which will be coming under the central bank. So the central bank is the RBI, which takes into control or which keeps into mind about all the commercial banks. All the commercial banks in a sense, all the banks, maybe the SBI, State Bank of India, maybe Syndicate Bank, Canara Bank, all these banks are the commercial banks. So all these banks comes under the RBI, which is a central bank, which is the main bank. After to that, what will this commercial bank does? The commercial banks accepts the deposits from the public, that is from the public. What do you normally do? You go and put your money as a savings in the bank. So what will the bank people do? The bank people will take this money as a savings by you from as a deposit, and later on what will they do? They will keep a certain percentage of the amount, that is 20% of the amount with themselves, and later on the leftover 80% of the amount which will be giving to the other person as a loan or as a credit. So this will be done under the commercial bank. So why will they do? They will do all these things with the aim of by keeping the profit thing in their mind. So what happens when you save something in the bank? You will be getting interest, you will be getting interest. But when the person goes and buys takes any kind of loan, what happens at this particular point of time? The man who has taken the loan or who has taken the credit, they will be giving the interest to the bank. So the payment of the interest will be a slight higher when you get this interest for your savings. So by this, what happens? The commercial banks will make the profit. So even these commercial banks will be giving you the loans for the agricultural purposes. After nationalization, what happened? The supply of agricultural credit has been increased in a sense where majority of the people will be going to the agricultural field. So what happens at this particular point of time? It is very much necessary for the people to gain something. So what happens when they take agricultural credit? They will be purchasing all the necessary things under agriculture. Later on they will be yielding a good yield. Later on they will be selling, and later on the credit will be giving or payment will be done with the low rate of interest under commercial banks. Next one is about the regional rural banks. So as the name itself tells, for the rural banks, which is regionally, only specifically for the agricultural purpose. So the objective is to provide credit and other facilities, particularly to small and marginal farmers, agricultural laborers, artisans and small enterprise to develop the agriculture, trade, commerce, industry, handicraft and other productive activities in rural areas. Specifically only in the rural areas, not only the agriculture, even all the necessary things. You can even trade in the sense buy or sell things. You can even keep any kind of industry, you can do any kind of business, you can export things, you can import things. For all these necessary things, what happens? The regional rural banks will be giving you the credit at lower rate of interest. Next one is about the cooperative credit society. What is cooperative? What is the meaning of cooperative? As the word itself tells, cooperatively, many of people coming together and doing the business together or doing any kind of work together, cooperatively doing things. So what happens? What do the cooperative credit society does? It gives the any kind of a credit or at cheapest and the bestest source. So cooperative credit society is told as the bestest source. Why? Because many people will come together, many farmers will come together and ask for the loan, so that the interest can be divided among all these people. So which will be not a difficult thing, or which will not be a burden thing for the farmers. So the primary agricultural credit society supply only short term and medium term finance. Short term in the sense only for a specific period of time, maybe 6 months, maybe 1 year, within 2 years. Okay, short or the medium term finance will be given under the cooperative credit society, which will be even easier for the farmers to pay in return. Okay, next one is about the land development banks. So basically this is only for the land development, where it will be supplying the long term credit requirements. Maybe for the 5 years, 10 years, the interest will be paid, the amount, the principal amount which will be given, you can pay after so many years. So the provision of credit will be particularly only for the land improvement or purchase of any agricultural implements, digging of wells, purchasing of new land, doing any kind of renovation in your land. All these things can be done done under the land developmental banks, where the proper credit facility will be giving by these kinds of banks. Lastly, about the self-help group. So what is self-help group? Self-help group are the groups where maybe a group of 10 members, maybe a group of 15 members, or a group of 20 members. The people will come together and they will pool the money. Pool the money in the sense, what will they do? They will put the money, maybe 5,000 per head. If there are 20 people, 5,000 per head or 1,000 per head. They will put all those money, and any one particular person who is in need of money will be giving that particular money as a loan and will be taking only a small percentage of the interest. That is done under the self-help group. These kind of self-help groups have been emerged to fill the gap in the formal credit system, where what happens, where the normal banks, the commercial banks, when they ask at a maybe 7% of interest or 6.5% of the interest, what do the self-help groups does? As the people come together, they will not charge a high rate of interest, maybe 3% or 2%. All these things can be done under self-help group. Next one is about the self-help groups promotes savings in small proportion in the form of minimum contribution from each other. That's what, as told earlier, everybody will be putting some percentage of the amount, so it can even be the savings, they can even put it to the bank, they can even gain interest, or even the loan can be given to the needy ones. Lastly, the accumulated money credit will be given to the needy members at low rate of interest. So these are the institutional sources which will be providing the credit, not only for agriculture but also for all the necessary development under the rural area, under the village area. Okay, so the uses of rural banking. So why is it necessary? What happens in the village area? The people, if the banks are not being situated in the rural areas, it will be very difficult for the farmers to come from the village area to the urban cities, to maybe not only to put savings, even they have to ask for the loan and do all the necessary things. So users, rapid expansion of the banking system had a positive effect on the rural farm and non-farm output, income and employment. Not only the farmers started savings in the particular banks, even in spite of that, they started getting loan, they started getting interest, they started putting the income into as their savings. And even what happened, the people, even some of the educated people, could have got the employment opportunities in these kinds of banks. Next one, it helped farmers to avail services and credit facilities and a variety of loans for meeting their production in need. So that's what, as the credit facility or loan facility will be given, it will be very easier for the rural people or the village people to have a proper developmental process in their particular village. So the demerits of rural banking. So none of the thing is perfect. So because of that, the demerits of rural banking are: first one, failed to develop a culture of deposit mobilization, lending the worthwhile borrowers and effective loan recovery. So what happened for the banking system? It was very difficult for the loan recovery when the farmers didn't get proper cultivation, when the result was not proper, when the yield was not proper. What used to happen? The farmers couldn't pay the loan. So that was one of the difficulty thing for the rural banking. Later on, agricultural loan default rates have been chronically high. When the rate of interest was very high, what used to happen? It was very difficult for the farmers to pay. It was even difficult for the farmers and even for the banking. Why? Because even the banks needs the money in return. So all these things were the difficulty which was faced by the rural banking. So the assignment part, what is rural credit, and explain the sources. Explain the source in the sense, the both, what is institutional source and even the non-institutional source. Next question, what are the uses and demerits of rural banking? Thank you, students.